the shooting range. In this episode, the story of Arseniy Vorozheykin, or how to turn your disability to an advantage. A poor man's MBT-70, we take the new XM803 for a spin. Hotline. The developers answer questions that you've left in the comments. But first, let's start with the Sea Jaguar with very sharp claws, also known as the German Type 140-141 torpedo boat. Today, we'll talk about one of the best German torpedo boats, the Type 140-141 Jaguar. Why is it one of the best? Because it's very, very well balanced. Of course, there are faster machines, Project 206 for example. However, it has 18 fewer crew members and a somewhat narrower gun caliber, 30mm versus the Jaguar's 40mm. Our guest is also comparable to the VS-10. It has the same speed, but fewer torpedoes on board and laughable 15mm machine guns. Nah, the Jaguar is much better than this. Our guest is sitting comfortably at the battle rating of 3.7. Its main armaments are two 40mm cannons with 4,000 shells in tow. You pretty much will never run out of ammo in any given combat situation. In fact, these guns, two MEL-58 cannons, are a couple of good old Bofors guns. Yeah, those Bofors. Great accuracy, solid fire rate, and a sweet, sweet option to just hold the fire button without any worries about overheating. The enemy won't stand a chance. Just imagine, you pop at the point to capture it and get jumped by multiple enemies. Any other captain would just use the smokes and retreat, but not the commander of the Jaguar. Dual MELs awaken, and a couple of seconds later, all adversaries are sleeping with the fishes. Although you should still be careful around some of the bigger targets. If you notice that the enemy battleship is busy fighting your allies and its auxiliary weapons are distracted for a moment, join the party. Your caliber is not that menacing, but it's effective enough to knock down a command bridge or some of the turrets. Just don't try to face battleships alone. You'll only have your torpedoes to count on in a Mexican duel like that. When it comes to speed, in realistic battles, the Type 140 reaches the 80 km/h plank. Not breaking any records here, but it is suitable for capturing points and flanking. In arcade battles, the speed limit is higher, 110 kph. Still more than enough to rush. On the other hand, the survivability is lacking. The Jaguar has a deathly allergy to any high-caliber weaponry. One direct hit, two tops, because the ship doesn't really have any armor. But all is not lost. Fighting lesser ships is a much safer venue thanks to low silhouette and a crew of 39 sailors. Okay, what's up with the auxiliary armaments? Wait, what do you mean there are none? Fine. Who needs those gunners anyway? Of course, if you want something done, you ought to do it yourself. Bofors cannons are powerful enough to deal with either air or naval threats swiftly. And now, some tactical advice for you. At the start of the fight, don't shy away from rushing straight to the capture. You'll earn some points and help your team at the same time. In case an enemy notices you and moves in to intercept, don't panic. Judge your situation. If there's only one enemy, great, engage him. Two? It's worth a try. Three and more, you'd be better off retreating. In fact, this torpedo boat will be equally effective in both realistic and arcade battles, but there are a couple of important details to take a note of. Firstly, in realistic battles, you should keep a close eye on your torpedo supply, as it doesn't replenish automatically. Secondly, you should always be on a lookout for enemy approach. In RB, the situational awareness is highly important. Also, don't waste your torpedoes on any small targets. Save them for the battleships, especially considering where the torpedo launchers themselves are positioned on the Jaguar. It's your worst vulnerability. And one last bonus piece of advice. When you take a Type 140 for a spin, bring the BF-110G2 with you. This combo can easily net you more than 10 kills per match. And now let's go to the USSR and remember the incredible story of a really talented pilot. Many pilots become famous for flying despite being disabled. Alexei Maresiev, Douglas Bader, and Zakhar Sorokin flew after they'd lost their legs. Saburo Sakai went blind in one eye, but fought until Japan surrendered. And Soviet pilot Ivan Leonov flew with only one hand. But there was one ace whose injury was much more serious. During the battles on Khalkhin Gol, a young I-16 pilot known as Lieutenant Arseniy Vorozheykin made an emergency landing somewhere in Mongolia and damaged his spine. He was rescued by Mongolian border guards and soon taken to a hospital in Chita, where they diagnosed him with a terrible condition, a compression fracture of the spine. Even now, such a trauma is quite serious and has long-term consequences. And then, returning to aviation? Flying? The verdict of the doctors was inexorable. No chance, mate. You can't even ride a bicycle now, and a parachute jump will just kill you. But Vorozheykin concealed the diagnosis, returned to the system, continued flying despite the terrible pain in his back, and even shot down 4 aircraft, bringing his list of victories to 6. But it became clear he couldn't fly in the same way any longer. For instance, now he would faint from pain every time the overload was getting beyond 3 or 4 G. Even getting out of the plane was impossible without the help from the mechanics. But when the truth was revealed, the command decided, he flies and moreover he shoots things down, therefore the doctors have confused something. And how could they even think of discharging a pilot who became an ace in just the summer of 1939? So, barely finishing fighting in Mongolia, Vorozheykin went to war with Finland, and then even to the Air Force Academy. He also fought on the fronts of World War II, though his comrades tried to keep him safe, only letting him do reconnaissance and assault. But Vorozheykin did not like it. So, being a true master of aerobatics, he developed his own tactics of air combat, which eliminated too sharp maneuvers and overloads. And very soon he got the chance to test his ideas in battle. After receiving a new Yak-7B, he started flying to intercept German bombers. At first, everything was going smoothly, but on August 4th, 1943, during the terrible Battle of Kursk, he encountered the German fighters. In the squadron of the Yak-7Bs, they had just successfully dispersed the Junkers formation, but then were attacked by a unit of aces from the Jaguar 53. That's 53 for you others. True professionals, not some newbies just out of flight academy. Within 2 minutes, the planes of Lieutenant Karnaukhov and Ivan Morya were shot down, and Dmitry Anin's aircraft was seriously damaged. Vorozheykin was left alone against 4 enemy craft. He went closer to the ground, and the Germans followed, clearly mocking the pilot who wasn't capable of harsh maneuvers. They decided not only to shoot him down, but demonstratively shoot him in front of his own. Two German pilots on the newest Gustavs easily caught up with Vorozheykin and took positions on his left and right, thus blocking the ability for a horizontal turn. The third one went ahead and above the Yak-7, as if inviting, "Come on, lift your nose, shoot!" And the fourth one, the most dangerous, the Bf-109 with a black nose, was rapidly approaching from behind. He was just waiting for the Soviet pilot to swallow the bait. The Germans didn't yet understand how awful this sadistic play would turn out for them within a few seconds. They'd made a terrible mistake because they'd decided that the sluggishly maneuvering Yak-7 was piloted by a newbie frightened to death. But Vorozheykin didn't even think of swallowing the bait. Yes, he pretended to be that frightened beginner, but he flew with a side slip, constantly going out of the sights from the black-nosed Gustav. And its pilot, approaching in a rapid dive and trying to aim, was becoming more and more irritated, trying to understand what was going on with his own aircraft. He skipped past Vorozheykin's Yak-7 and was distracted for just a moment to check the readings and go on the attack again. At exactly that moment, Vorozheykin abruptly dropped his speed, turned to the black-nosed fighter, and fired all his guns, and the newest Gustav literally exploded in midair. The remaining German trio was shocked and tried to understand what had just happened, and Vorozheykin was already shooting the one playing bait point blank. The last two German fighters fled in panic. From this day, no one would remind Vorozheykin of his grave handicap. His aerial tactics, which perplexed even his own comrades, allowed him to meet the end of the war as two-times hero of the Soviet Union in the rank of colonel, and with a personal score of 46 grounded German aircraft. And with the Japanese, 52. True, Vorozheykin couldn't run, but he sure as hell could fly. And now let's check a new toy from the US of A. The American-German MBT-70 is marvelous. It's deadly, highly agile, has good looks, but it's too damn expensive to manufacture. Because of that, when its development project was closed, the engineers had to re-examine that beast in order to reduce the manufacturing expenses. That's how the XM803 was born. The poor man's MBT. Don't panic, the XM803 is no outsider, even if it does look weaker than its predecessor. Yes, the engine lost around 200 horsepower, but it only affected the acceleration dynamic. On rough terrain, this monster can reach 40 to 45 kph, or even all 60 kph on the roads. That's quite enough to rush some points. And the reverse speed is not bad either. 40 to 45 kph allows for a swift cover after firing a shot. Oh, and while we're on the subject of firepower, the tanks are equipped with the same cannons as the MBT-70. The 152mm XM150E5 with access to 4 types of shells. Out of this quartet, your best friends are the XM578E1 APFSDS and the MGM51C ATGM, with penetration rates of 370mm and 431mm at 100 meters range, respectively. Nothing spectacular, but it will do for most of the targets. Oh, one more thing. Try to take no more than 26 shells into battle. Otherwise, one lucky shot to the hull will blow your ammunition to kingdom come. Now that we mention it, survivability is a difficult topic for the XM803. It almost doesn't have any defenses at all. The spaced armor can only protect you from some stationary weapons. Surviving a hit from, let's say, the Leopard is a rare piece of luck. only the gun mantlet is fortified properly, but, as in most cases, it all comes down to the area of the impact. Also, the XM803 has a crew of only 3 members, so it's best to steer clear of the enemy fire whenever possible. Yeah, we agree. It might seem like the XM803 is absolutely mediocre, but that's not true. The excellent weapon, coupled with an impressive shell load and good mobility, makes this tank an ideal machine for flanking. To properly utilize those advantages, at the start of the fight, keep some distance between you and your allies, while at the same time picking a good position and watching for any enemy approaching. There are no markers in realistic battles, which works in your favor. However, in arcade battles, the stealthy positioning is much more difficult to pull off. Just keep your head low until the gunfight erupts. And remember, your reloading speed is seriously slow. It's 10 seconds. Don't just stand there, move! Fire a shot, move away. If an enemy is still functioning, repeat. Get ready for the traditional last part of our show, Hotline, developers answering questions from the comments. The first question was asked by a user called Bridge. Say something on Tier 6 jets, please. Something on Tier 6 jets. But seriously, we're still working those out. There's a lot of interference concerning the balance, the speed, and the firepower, including the guided missiles. For now, we're still doing a lot of internal tests and can't tell you anything specific about the Tier 6 jets. Swedish Style 97 asks, Hi, are you working or planning on a new Tech 3? Hi there. For now, we're still working on the Italians. After we release them, launch the naval battles at its fullest, and finish the World War mode, we might think of adding a new nation. But that's definitely not something to expect this year. Then, there's a question from a user called Peterson Albuquerque. Please Gaijin optimize War Thunder to run on weaker computers? Sorry, mate, but it's pretty safe to say that it's already quite optimized for that purpose. Even though we continue to optimize it with basically every major update, there's a good chance that if the game doesn't run on your computer, the time has come to upgrade it. Another question today was sent by Bako. Will you add Yugoslavia to the game anytime soon, or anytime at all? Soon? Absolutely not. Anytime at all? Maybe. It all depends on the information we find on other nations. The one where we'll find the most will probably be the next one that we work on in the first place. And the very last, very serious message was sent by a player called ML Guifro. Bruce saying, "Yee, boy, made my day." Glad you liked it. After all, ain't it what we're here for? That's it for today, but feel free to write your questions in the comments below. We do read them all, and you might see some of them answered in the next episode. If you like what we're doing, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. See you on the shooting range.